The ape man cometh. Yep. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Monday, Monday, Monday. Ah, damn. Thing's doing the thing again. Anyway, trusty ape thing. Thingamajigger. Coming at you live for the open room. I made it, at the scheduled time again. Not the time it's supposed to be, but hey, it is what it is. It's fucking cold. It's raining. Sorry about the fan noise, but it is the way it's got to be. Thank you, everybody who's watched, everybody who's come by. Had a great conversation with our dying son yesterday, and Hot Science came by. Hot Sci, Bumblebee, and it was excellent. And I was kind of trying to think of what I wanted to talk about today, and like productive philosophical ways of talking about it. Okay, so if we were going to believe in a deity, here's the thought experiment, right? If we were to believe in a deity, hypothetically, you don't have to. You may believe in the deity, and you can describe the deity that you believe in. What are its attributes? What are its characteristics? What are its powers? Does it, all that good stuff, right? And what does it do? What is its role from our perspective, right? What is the deity? And not what would it take to make you believe it, but what would be a believable God? And yeah, so I was looking into that. I'd like to have a conversation about that, and I'll define my terms in a minute here. But I was also received an ad for the local church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. And we have a website and meetings and all that good stuff. So may get affiliated with that group. I don't know. There's you don't have to do anything to become a member, but you can become ordained in the church for a small fee, and you can become a priest in the church somehow. I didn't look into the details of that, but be interesting. Let's look at the website. I'm sure I've heard about this, and I thought, well, this isn't real. This is a joke. Sure enough, one of the fastest growing religions. Oh, yeah. So $60, you can be ordained. A Pastafari. Yes, that's right. I love it. Welcome to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. With many thousands of members in 60-plus countries, the Church of the FSM is one of the fastest-growing religions in the world. Everyone is welcome. Please look around and join us if you like what you see. Some perks of being a Pastafarian. Every Friday is a religious holiday. No dues, beer volcano in the afterlife, pirate regalia at formal functions. I've already joined the email list. Help me, Flying Spaghetti Monster. I don't know how this compares. Is this compatible with lobsterism? Because I might still be subscribed a bit to lobsterism as well. Are the Flying Spaghetti Monster and the lobster at odds? I don't know. It'll take time to figure these things out. But I think this is something I could get behind. Right. So my deity. Describe my deity. Well, if we're going by what people are calling a god, right? Pretty much every religion says that there's this god this deity, this entity, this being, right? So it itself is okay. Now there's a question: what is an entity, a being? Define that thing, right? Does it have to have a material body, or no? It has to have the power to create other living things, and therefore, in my mind, it must itself be a living thing. Now, it may have like a much longer span of life, much greater intelligence, much more fluid existence within reality, but it's got to exist within reality in some capacity. Now, you might even say we could say it's an interdimensional being. It exists on a different dimensional plane. It is able to manipulate materials in this universe as such that it has the power to create life. Okay, so that's the first step. It has to have some tangible power to create the life that we observe, the life that we ourselves partake in, right? So that's the one. So in my mind, there has to be some type of physical entity. Like I said, it could be some vastly superior physical entity that we do not understand, but it must have a physical power as such that it manipulates physical objects, and therefore must have a physical medium for itself. I've been very careful to try and say it, they, them, gender neutrality in this instance. I don't think that such a being could have a specified gender, or if so, it would have to have some kind of gender fluidity in order to exist for this, vast, infinitely long. We'll say infinitely, but I don't think it could be an infinite thing. I don't think anything of this nature could be truly infinite, but vastly greater than our comprehension, right? In terms of the span of its existence, it must either be completely asexual and gender neutral, or it must be on some level of fluidity on that spectrum that we can't even comprehend, right? So that's the way I would see it. And so if we're talking about that being, sure, that deity could exist out there. Now, do we have evidence for it? No, I don't think we do. The mere fact of existence is kind of spectacular in of itself, but it's not really evidence for the claim, is it? But if we're playing ball on the same field and by the same rules, then we can still rationally discuss the nature of this entity if we're hypothetically agreeing that it may exist and how it relates to us and our activities as humans in the world. Parochial police want to offer promotion of your channels. Okay. Viewers, followers, views, chatbots. The price is lower than any competitor. The quality is guaranteed to be best. Auto on, incredibly flexible, inconvenient order management panel. Everything is in your hands. Turn it on, off, customize. Go to dodgehype.com. And there's your free advertisement. You can contribute to the Trusty 8 podcast. I'll read your advertisements out. Bill Burr for status. Style. Yeah. Go to parochialpolicem.com. No, I mean dodgehype.com. Again, was that more like a Gilbert Gottfried thing going on there? I was just trying to be obnoxious. I don't know. Well, you're not even showing up in my viewer count. I don't know. I just started watching the old Christopher Hitchens, one of the Christopher Hitchens, William Lane Craig debates. I don't know if they did more than one. I feel like I've seen more than one, but it's hard to, at this point, who the fuck can remember? Yeah, whether or not a god need exist. Well, I don't believe that I need a God to exist, but a lot of people think that I need to believe in a God, like something higher than myself. And it's like, but it can't be people. If it's people, then you're doing the wrong. No, don't do that, right? So okay, unless it's that Jesus guy, he's okay. Uh, right, okay. But if I just need to proclaim that I believe in some deity just for the sake of doing it, even if I'm lying, then at least I would choose a logical deity. Now, I don't know if the floating teapot or the flying spaghetti monster or the lobster, the lobsterous lobster are the appropriate choices, but you gotta choose one, right? Or just lie and say you're a Christian if you want to get involved in any type of politics or, well, maybe not. What's up, Math Pig? Good to see you. My good man. So I'm asking anybody to come in and define what they believe would be an acceptable deity, a believable deity. Whether or not you actually believe in it is another story, but what would be the characteristics of that God, that great man in the sky, that monster? The lobster is real. So I identified that it has to have, under whatever present belief system and the things we're talking about, it has to have the power to create living things, right? Now I don't think it can necessarily manipulate us. Maybe it can try to trick us. But red and snappy hands. Wait, I'm gonna do it. I'm a lobster. That was bad. My hands are not very red though. They're a little pinkish. I'm an overcooked lobster, maybe. I get sidetracked. Okay, yeah. So okay, and it has to have the power to obviously manipulate our physical world. Now, if it's an interdimensional being, it could do that from outside of this dimension. But that's just all like hypothetical speculation, right? Like, okay, I could believe in the interdimensional being that somehow manipulates this physical existence and provided for our existence. Okay. But then it's like it plants a seed in a garden, but it has like no control over it. Maybe it sets the timer, the automatic timer for watering, and then the system goes haywire, and so it's not really sure what time it's gonna water today, and it's totally But okay, the universe is kind of like a schizophrenic design, but let's just say that there's this designer, okay, for the sake of argument, what is his purpose? So, and when you break it down, like the only thing it could mean is that we are here merely to be observed and potentially manipulated in certain ways, right? Potentially, it's possible. Like, so I don't think that it's not obvious. It's not immediately obvious that God can control the behavior of humans, but God might try to manipulate the behavior of humans in certain ways for whatever reasons he has. Either that, or we are completely free to behave in whatever way we choose, and this God, this deity, would merely be observing our preferences and taking notes. Something like the great psychologist in the sky. Okay, but if he had the power to just manipulate all humans to be good, and he created all humans and their nature, right, he would just create them to be good and not break his rules. They'd all just be good, law-abiding, God-fearing citizens, right? So that's a limitation. Our God is limited in his power. He's limited in his in his knowledge, right? Because if he can't create a universe in such a way that evil things that displease him would not happen, or he intentionally created a universe in which things that displeased him would happen? See, that doesn't make any sense. This thing is supposed to be infinitely old and super intelligent. Why would he create a universe and a peoples to displease himself? That doesn't make any sense. So, that's what I'm left with. If I'm going to have a deity that makes sense, alright, cool. Church, join any church. Now, does my deity offer me moral prescriptions? No, at this point, no. There's a bunch of potential deities with various books and public figures and people telling us how we ought to behave because the book says this, and then people disagree about what the book says, so you got to follow this or that denomination of the thing, right? And so none of this coming directly from the deity to me. I've just got to trust all these various processes and intermediaries, and, so no, that doesn't happen. I could trust my moral intuition, right, which is fixed internally, which according to the model is somehow fixed, like hardwired into me by the creator thing, or at least in my predecessors, right? Because we don't know whether he hardwired these traits into the very first humans, who then evolved and went down generations, lineages to become us, these humans that are now, more advanced models of the original. Is this making any type of sense? I'm trying to. So this deity, let's break it down. This deity is vastly old and vastly intelligent and has great powers, but is not infinitely old, infinitely intelligent, or infinitely powerful. This creature cannot or does not interact with us directly, at least most of the time. If it does, it is believed to do so, for the most part, with people in complete isolation. However, on occasion, it does visit the masses. We have mass sightings, but these are very rare. Okay. Maybe the deity only visits us once every so often, and that's why we only have these kind of rare mass sightings and limited individual interactions. It's possible. Now, none of this rules out the possibility of a multitude of deities, which would make us possibly pantheist, polytheist, or pagan, right? That could be true as well. Is that going to be an acceptable answer to my interlocutors, or these hypothetical people of whom we speak, who demand that I must believe in some creator deity? They absolutely demand it. Could my God be the one and only atheist warlord Charles Darwin? Can we worship Charles Darwin? Is he a saint, a messiah, a savior of humanity from the evils of religion? Or no? Is that what the evolutionists believe? This could just end up being a diatribe of me. Who knows at this point? See if we have any videos on YouTube. I'm sure they must. They must have videos on YouTube. And now Vosh is live streaming over me. I see how it is. No, Vosh doesn't know who the fuck I am. Okay. Get some more info on this.
The Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster believes the universe was created by a noodly appendaged god made out of pasta, and it's sparking debate about what it means to be a religion.
Well, what if I told you there was a flying spaghetti monster? Would you believe it simply because it can't be disproven?
Welcome to Watch Mojo's Top 5 Facts. In today's installment, we're looking at the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, also known as Pastafarianism.
Do you believe in a flying spaghetti monster too, Bubblehead?
Number 5. The church started out as a parody of intelligent design.
The world is 4,000 years old and can only be the product of intelligent design.
Oh, that's horseshit!
In 2005, Bobby Henderson, a 24-year-old Oregon State University graduate with a degree in physics, founded the FSM Church for the noblest of reasons: to prove a point.
It's not about money, it's about sending a message.
When the Kansas State Board of Education announced its intention to allow the teaching of intelligent design alongside evolution in classrooms, Henderson sent them a letter as a satirical critique. In the letter, Henderson wrote about his personal theory that the universe was created by a flying spaghetti monster 5,000 years ago, and the creature made it look billions of years old for some unknown reason. Henderson insisted his theory carried equal weight with intelligent design and evolution and should be taught in addition for a balanced perspective.
Hey, Professor, I'm a flying spaghetti monster. You seriously believe I'm descended from some kind of flightless manicotti?
Yes! Oh, please.
Needless to say, the Board of Education didn't take Henderson's request into consideration, but the idea caught on and the letter went viral.
We thank you, Lord, for this mighty fine, intelligent design.
His religion is often compared to joke religions such as Jediism, but Henderson insists his religion is the real thing. The FSM faith may sound ridiculous, but if string theory is proven correct, and we're all tiny pieces of vibrating string, then could we not all possibly be made in the flying spaghetti monster's noodly image?
There's no great mystery to life, just evolution, and God's a spaghetti monster. Thank you, Richard!
Number 4. There is no official dogma.
The FSM is most notable for such feats as creating everything in existence, personally maintaining gravitational forces throughout the universe, and inspiring the creation of the Rotary Lawn Sprinkler.
While most religions have no problem running their followers' lives and telling them what to do, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster likes to encourage independent thinking. It's up to each individual follower to decide what they want to believe and go with whatever works for them.
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it.
However, the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, published in 2006, contains 8 rules known as the 8 I'd really rather you didn'ts, which is more or less a Pastafarian version of the 10 Commandments. But as the name implies, they're more casual suggestions meant to discourage sanctimonious piety and bigotry than they are strict guidelines.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
Of course, some beliefs have found popular support among the Pastafarian community. Among them, the conviction that it is important to enjoy oneself and drink lots of beer, and that in heaven, not only are the faithful rewarded with eternal life, but also with access to a beer volcano and a stripper factory. Number 3. Anyone can become a minister.
Et Spiritus Sancti, etc., etc.
You can't! No one is gonna believe Archer is a priest!
If you feel the burning desire to spread the Pastafarian gospel, but feel you're not qualified, have no fear. There's no theological training required or special seminary that one has to attend. To become ordained, all you have to do is visit the church's website and give $25 to, presumably, Bobby Henderson. In return, he'll send you a special certificate and put you in an official registry containing the names of other ordained ministers. Once you are ordained, you are given the authority to perform baptisms and exercise last rites. If nothing else, you'll be able to go to college campuses and bug students as they're walking to class. Just like Christian preachers. In April 2016, a New Zealand minister was able to perform the first legally recognized Pastafarian marriage, which featured wedding vows full of pasta-themed wordplay, and of course, full pirate regalia.
To celebrate with family, with friends, in pirate costume, and with rum. Those are my terms, yeah!
As a matter of fact, number 2. According to the church, global warming and pirates are related. Their reasoning? These two trends perfectly correlate. Back when there were more pirates, there was less global warming. Today, there are fewer pirates than ever before, and there's more global warming. You do the math. They also point toward evidence suggesting that Somalia has the most pirates of any other country in the world, and the smallest carbon footprint.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
The church teaches that to combat global warming and reverse these trends, more people have to revive the lost art of pirating. Which means, among other things, dressing like a pirate and talking like one.
'Tis about the matter of payments for me membership. Steve be a touch short this month.
The church also teaches that pirates were once an upstanding group of people, and they only get a bad rap today because historical revisionists, namely missionaries, have cast them in a negative light.
I mean, you hear pirate ship, you think sails, cannonballs. Oh, not one of these guys has a beard.
Number 1. Wearing a colander on your head is religious expression.
Get a sifter or a colander. Colander would be good.
As an outlandish, yet somehow logical symbol to proudly show one's Pastafarian identity, the church encourages its followers to wear colanders over their heads in the workplace and in their photo IDs. In various countries all over the world, people are fighting for the right to wear these colanders in their driver's license pictures. Many have been successful, but the struggle continues for recognition. The church has been legally recognized as an official religion in the Netherlands, New Zealand, and Poland. Unfortunately, other parts of the world haven't been so progressive. In April 2016, a US federal judge ruled that a Nebraska prisoner's devotion to the Pastafarian faith did not entitle him to typical religious accommodations, such as the right to wear his sacred colander. The judge saw it more as satire than a real religion.
It satirizes religion, this faith, and Mr. Fillion insists that the kitchenware is part of that religion.
So, have you been touched by the flying spaghetti monster's noodly appendage? And are you going to put a colander on your head the next time you update your driver's license? For more devoted top 10s and carb-heavy top 5s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
You're right. It's so simple. God is a spaghetti monster. Oh, thank you. Jeez, my eyes are open.
And that's the facts, folks. Just the facts, man. 30 minutes on. No guest. Nobody wants to come play with me. I mean, you can convince me that God's not a flying spaghetti monster if you can convince me. Or whatever. It's just an open room. It's food for thought. Topic on, topic off. I guess I could go share the stream. That might help, you know. Sharing streams. Who does that anymore? And I'm perpetually logged out of my Facebook on this fucking device, and I don't have the time to sit here and figure it out right now. I'll probably have to reset my fucking password, and it's a pain in the fucking ass, and it's all my fault for not being on top of my shit. And there's me listening to myself say that. There's my 11 a.m. alarm. Alarms all day, every day. Make sure I stay on top of my shit. Alright, and we'll do app mentions. Who are we adding today? Atheist Girl, Benito, Purple rhymes with orange, Student Dr. Ben, Steve Morgan, Mikey Famine, Godless Mom, course. Bree, I know Bree's at work, but this is rocket science. Jay and what's Hobo Johnson fan page? Yeah, just to keep it interesting. Kitty the Atheist. Aaron Lewis. I see a lot of the same names now. Ooh, Pelu Mama. If you haven't noticed, I'm just going through the alphabet. No context Brits. Hey, yeah, that'll do. That'll do just fine. And since we're here, we'll check some tweets. We'll go through the Twitterverse. Elon Musk's new mission to Mars. If you could have lunch with 3 creators, who would you pick? What do you mean by creators? Content creators? And why is 3 in... Oh, I thought those were quotations, but it looks like they did a misspelling and corrected it. 3 content creators. That's interesting. Because I was just watching one of my very favorite AXP moments, well, yeah, from one of my favorite Atheist Experience videos, where they had Rationality Rules with Cosmic Skeptic and Matt Dillahunty on the Atheist Experience. Right now, I almost feel like that would probably be my top 3. Just to have lunch and a beer with those dudes would fucking be epic. And then I'm like, well, am I recording the lunch? Because I don't know, it'd probably just be like a lot of banter, because I'm not... But, you know, if I was talking about having like an important discussion for my YouTube channel or something, I'm like, wait, let me get a little bit deeper on this. I would probably want like a female creator. God, there's so many. And then I'm like, okay, you want to get perspective. So then you're like 3 different types of people engaging on a spectrum. Oh, see, this gets so complicated for me. But yeah, just having lunch and a beer with 3 people, yeah. Stephen Woodford, Alex O'Connor, and Matt Dillahunty. That would be a fucking great fucking lunch date right there. Those guys, they're all great in their own right. Fuck, whatever people say about shit, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a chainsaw. What happens to me when transgenderism becomes illegal, Steve? Oh, Steve McRae. I was gonna have a conversation with Steve McRae. He did invite me on the channel. I haven't taken up on it yet. Steve doesn't really know who I am. I've only heard about Steve through other people who tell me he's a piece of shit, but I haven't personally interacted with Steve, so there's that. Like, don't do it. I keep hearing that. Don't do it. And then once I say that out loud, usually those people just, like Otangelo doesn't try to interact with me anymore. He canceled on me, or flaked on me, when I was going to have a conversation with him on the channel, and I tried to reschedule, and then things got really weird. Yeah. And then he started doing like even weirder videos than the ones he was making, and now I'm like, what is this stuff now? I don't know. Anyway, we're reading the tweet that we're responding to. I'm sorry, I'm hesitating. I'm like, I'm hesitating. It blows my mind that someone can take, quote, eradicate transgenderism, end quote, to mean eradicate transgender, quote unquote. One is an ideology, the other the individuals who hold it. This is absolutely dog whistling at its finest. Eradicate porn equals eradicate porn stars. No, wait. The huge, like, false equivalence between... Okay, saying eradicate porn to do away with it means to eradicate the porn stars, the people who create it. You know, no, they want to reform all porn stars. And what you're saying is that transgenderism is an industry or a hobby like porn is. And so to eradicate transgenderism is not to eradicate the person, it's to reform the person. As if you can reform the transgendered person. They're both ideologies. They are congruent with one another. You have a belief that if you can eradicate the practice of the thing, you won't eradicate those who practice it, you will reform those who practice it to be... So, I don't see how that's like a Christian worldview. Christians believe that, no, you can just pray the gay away, and that's what you're saying. If you can eradicate transgenderism, you can pray the trans away. That's all you're saying. And Mumbleberry says, what happens to me when transgenderism becomes illegal, Steve? We aren't out here refusing to be inoculated for our transgenderism. We are the transgenderism they want to inoculate against, right? So in the process of trying to eradicate this trend, you are dehumanizing, disregarding the people who are already experiencing the thing that you're talking about, that you apparently don't know anything about, right? Because you're equating it to porn already, like this is just a lifestyle choice, is wrong. It's obscene. It's offensive. Jason says, do it. What, talk to Steve? Alright, I mean, I'm still on the fence about considering it. I'll have to go to his platform and on his terms probably. But yeah, I might do it. No new Twitter followers, so hey. Recent tweet from Monica says, this account is not me, I don't have PayPal and would never put that on Twitter. If I did, I would never use the praying hands either, please report. Okay. That's interesting. I don't even know how that shit ends up in my feed. I'm not subscribed to that person. It took me years to recognize I had anxiety. No, I knew I had anxiety. I just didn't understand why people just like kept telling me to get over it and nobody could actually help me fucking deal with it. Like, no insurance. Gotta pay people to deal with bullshit this deep. An inclusive yoga space? Okay. I mean, that's cool. Zakia Bishton. It wasn't until my early 30s that I was able to, finally able to name anxiety as something that was happening to me. Burnout wasn't even in my vocabulary. But life as a black mixed heritage woman brought layers of stress that had built and built. Oh, are you not seeing this yet, are you? I'm reading this article and I'm not showing it here. Let me change the screen. Yeah, I said, why not, Jason? Just, there's people that'll say things to you. Well, I wouldn't watch that show, and don't host that person on your channel. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, I mean, there's certain people I won't touch with a 10-foot pole, or if I do, it's going to be with the prerequisite knowledge that we're going to get into a fucking argument, and that's going to be the gist of the program. And if you don't like it, you can just tune out. I don't see how I'm platforming somebody if I have a conversation with an asshole and I'm still trying to present a reasonable argument, you know, to a certain extent. Like I said, there's certain people, there's famous people I wouldn't have on my platform if you paid me, and they would bring me viewers, but as a result of that, I would get the wrong people, and I know that, so I wouldn't even fucking touch it. But I don't think Steve McRae is that person, really. Okay, back to the article here. Anxiety became my default state, brought on by experiences of racism that led to feelings of disconnection and not belonging. It wasn't until I was 32 that I finally realized something needed to change. When I was working for a global charity, I experienced racism, such as being challenged or not listened to in discussions about the representation of black people in the company's content and messaging. I felt utterly powerless. This experience showed me clearly the systems of racial power and how they play out in big institutions. I left that job intensely stressed and anxious. That moment opened the door for all my past experiences to rush back in. As I replayed situations, conversations, microaggressions at work, and hurtful moments from my past, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I found it difficult to focus on anything as my mind was so stuck in those moments of anxiety. I described myself as a high-performing, anxious person during this time. I kept working, doing, and moving forward, but a deep sense of unease followed me around. I had been doing yoga for more than 15 years, but this didn't do much to help. The fast-paced vinyasa I had once loved made me more anxious, and I would quickly get out of breath and feel dizzy and disoriented. I came across yoga therapy for anxiety teacher training thanks to an email from the Minded Institute. Okay, so that's a brand. A center dedicated to yoga therapy for mental health, and everything clicked into place. I took the course in pursuit of my own healing journey, never expecting it could lead to something bigger. I'm wondering now if this is like a long-winded advertisement for this group, but okay. Refocusing my yoga practice to a gentler, breath-focused, and restful flow calmed me, so more like meditation. Welcome change after years of persisting with dynamic classes that only left me more stressed. I learned that when you're experiencing anxiety, the thought of being still can feel daunting, so the approach I took was an easing in, going from gentle movement to soothing breathing into rest only once my body was ready. Learning to self-regulate through breathing practices was a significant change for me. Knowing I could alter my state simply by changing how I breathe made me feel like I was back in control. Doing the training helped me learn how essential attentional rest is for well-being. I learned that rest can be movement, creativity, emotional, mental, and so much more. Seeing how this approach to yoga healed me, I knew I needed to bring it to a wider audience. I always had a strong sense of the inequity in the yoga industry, so was drawn to teaching in community settings and leading my own classes. Feeling at home in yourself is key to yoga, so I needed to find and nurture environments that allowed me to do as a teacher and practitioner. I was also tired of the high price points of yoga classes, which often made me unable to commit to regular practice. All this led me to creating Mindwalk Yoga, my own online yoga studio led by Black and Black mixed heritage women. I wanted to make a space that I wanted to be part of. The teachers and the members create the mood and the energy, and I'm proud to say it feels like a truly authentic and inclusive online yoga space. It's not about yoga that will fix you or make you bendier. It's a space to explore yourself just as you are, anxious, burnt out, happy, joyful, and everything in between. We are a not-for-profit social enterprise. Nice. As a collective of Black and Black mixed heritage teachers and staff, we are intentionally centering ourselves, our minds, and our bodies, something that isn't happening in many mainstream yoga spaces. I want Mindwalk to feel like home, one you can access wherever you are. And that's vital. We recently conducted a survey with dope Black women and found that 82% of the Black and Black mixed heritage women we spoke to suffered from stress in the last year. 80% experienced anxiety and 59% reported burnout. The majority said yoga would help them de-stress, but that they didn't feel welcome in mainstream wellness spaces. I've learned firsthand just how powerful and inclusive yoga can be. As a Black mixed woman, being centered with no agenda other than love and honoring is beautiful and healing. My mental health has been yearning for this because, finally, I can access proper emotional and mental rest. I consider myself still in recovery from burnout. I think it will be a long journey to undo the behaviors and hang-ups that led me to a place of immense anxiety and overwhelm. But I've learned that it is a journey, not a destination, and I'm so grateful to now have a space where I can rest and where I can truly feel at home. Right. Whatever helps you do that. Whether it's a yoga club, whether it's the Church of Pastafarianism. That's the thing that is your deity, right? Well, no, maybe not your deity. Maybe it's just your ritual. You might have these rituals, and some of them might be silly, and some of them might be very practical. And the silly ones are more just for you. The practical ones, they're kind of based in your engagements with other people, your outward expression to the world, right? So these things have to be somewhat tailored uniquely to you. There can't be this rigid set of restrictions on your behavior outside of very practical guidelines about how you don't do harm to other people unnecessarily, right? That should be the main principle. And then the other one is how you might make more appropriate decisions to better yourself in the future and not be a frickin' headache for the rest of your fellow humans, right? And I don't want to like pick at people. There are people who need more help than others, right? And there are people who they just can't get the right kind of help, the right kind of nourishment, the right kind of nurturing that would be so easy if you just had the right group of people. I don't want to take a moment to say, here at the Trusty Podcast, I think, I've found a community of people, 145 solid subscribers. Like I said, I'd call most of y'all my friends. There might be some trolls out there in the wings, but I think I can safely say I've interacted with many of you, and it makes me always more confident that I'm doing the right things in life and I am where I need to be. However slow progress may be, it just keeps going. So earlier in the stream I was talking about defining a deity. You don't have to make me believe in the deity. I just want to know what a comprehensible, believable, rational deity would look like to you. What is this thing that we're calling God, if we're to try and agree with the believer or find some common ground? And I think the thing we're talking about has to have created all living things, so it has to have some power in this physical universe to create life, but I think it might be limited in what it can do beyond just the mere creation of life, right? What these limitations are we might discuss. So I think it has to have a physical being. That physical being may be incomprehensible to us, very different from ours, but it has to have some physical being in the material world in order to create other material things. So that's another prerequisite. It must be incomprehensibly old and extremely intelligent. Possibly. I don't know about the intelligence factor. This is, when you talk about intelligent design, I think this is the flaw in the model. I think you have this incomprehensibly old entity that only has the singular purpose of creating the life form and has no intelligence. It's just the great mother of the universe that just makes life indiscriminately without any intelligent thought. How about that model? Design, we call it unintelligent design, arbitrary design, completely indistinguishable from, I don't know. That's just one model. Anything's possible, right? You can't disprove the theory, so hey, what are you gonna do? Let me see. Since we're on the topic, try to stay on topic a little bit. I'm sure there's a good video we can find here. A short video, not too long. Oh yeah, of course it's a crash course video we've watched on this channel before. Have we watched this? I feel like I have. I watched this on the channel here or on Alright, we'll get the alternative perspective. I know we've never watched this one. The Chimps and Typewriters theory, yes. Who would eventually write all the works of Shakespeare, Hitchens, and Dawkins. Of course. So we'll watch the other party's view from PragerU. Because I'm pretty sure we've watched that crash course video here before. and we'll let the man speak.
Are you sick of having issues with your webinars?
After
wasting
Dana
tons
speaks,
of time on troubleshooting with attendees? If so, you need StreamYard.
Dana,
on
I
it.
have StreamYard.
Hey, it's Dana
I'm
from
using
StreamYard.
Chances are, if you've heard anything about intelligent design, you've heard that it's a faith-based, not a science-based idea. Or maybe you've even heard it's religion masquerading as science. Is that true? Well, why don't you decide? According to evolutionary biologists, such as Richard Dawkins of Oxford University, living systems give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. But that appearance is merely an illusion. Why? Well, according to Dawkins and his followers, wholly undirected processes such as natural selection and random mutations can produce the intricate design-like structures in living systems. In their view, natural selection can mimic the powers of a designing intelligence without being guided or directed in any way. In contrast, the proponents of intelligent design argue that there are telltale features of living systems and the universe that are best explained by a designing intelligence. So what telltale signs of intelligence are we talking about? There are many, but let's focus here on just one: the digital code stored in the DNA molecule. In 1953,
You just call it a digital code? I don't think that's the way any geneticists reference it, but okay.
James Watson and Francis Crick mapped out the structure of the DNA molecule. Along the interior of their famed double helix, they discovered a 4-character code at work. They soon realized that
I think they created the code to coincide with the observation. It's the other way around. We created the code to make it like an analogy we could use.
sequences of precisely positioned chemicals, called nucleotide bases, store and transmit the assembly instructions, the information, for building the crucial protein molecules that cells need to survive. No protein molecules, no life. Crick later proposed that the chemical constituents in DNA function like letters in a written language or digital symbols in a computer code.
Right, in the sense that they are fixed, and we can utilize these symbols to represent the structures that we're observing. It doesn't mean that it was written.
This well-functioning computer code depends upon precise sequences of zeros and ones. So too does the function of the DNA molecule depend upon the specific arrangement of chemical bases along the spine of the double helix. Famed biotech specialist Leroy Hood describes the information stored in DNA as digital code. Even Richard Dawkins has acknowledged the machine code of the genes is uncannily computer-like.
Right, but again, this is just a correlation that we with our human brains make. Yeah, so they're just gonna act like that's what Dawkins said. What he says, computer-like, and say.
But where did this information, this digital code, come from? Today, this question lies at the heart of a great scientific mystery, the mystery of the origin of life. Building a living cell requires many proteins, and building proteins requires genetic information in DNA or some other equivalent molecule. Yet to date, no theory of undirected chemical evolution can explain the origin of the digital information needed to build the first living cell from simpler, non-living chemicals.
He keeps calling it digital, but that's incorrect. Genetic information is not digital information. We create an analogy to digital information, right? It's an analogy.
In other words, the problem of getting life from non-life. Why is this a problem? There is simply too much information in the cell to be explained by chance alone. The probability of generating a section of DNA code capable of building just one functional protein by chance is vanishingly small, even taking into account the multi-billion-year history of the universe. And even the simplest living cells require hundreds of proteins. Thus, the given enough time, anything is possible argument no longer works. Origin of life researchers agree. The chance hypothesis has failed. Chemistry doesn't help us either. Unlike basic chemical compounds, like a crystal of salt, the chemical letters in the DNA message do not arrange themselves as a result of mutual attraction. Saying otherwise would be like saying that the message in a newspaper headline could spontaneously emerge because of the way ink sticks to paper. Clearly, something else is at work. In this case, a newspaper editor. Yet proponents of intelligent design do not argue for the theory because all these other theories, chance, chemical laws, or some combination, have failed. Instead, they argue for intelligent design because our uniform and repeated experience, the basis of all scientific reasoning, shows that systems with digital information invariably arise from intelligence. DNA functions like a software program. We know from experience that software comes from programmers. We know that information, whether inscribed in hieroglyphics, written in a book, or encoded in a radio signal, always arises from an intelligent source. So the discovery of information at the foundation of life in even the simplest living cells provides strong grounds for inferring that a designing intelligence played a role in the origin of life. So contrary to what you may have heard, intelligent design is not based on religion, but on scientific discoveries. It is also based on the same method of scientific reasoning that Charles Darwin used, a method that relies on our uniform experience of cause and effect to guide our theories about what happened in the past. You may still wish to dismiss the theory of intelligent design. You're free to believe whatever you like, but you'll have a hard time doing so based on the science. I'm Stephen Meyer of the Discovery Institute and author of Signature in the Cell for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please
Free PragerU videos. I'm on 2 devices, sorry. I'm trying to upload some shit. What's up, Nitty? Good to see you.
Let me see how this works out. I've got probably some background noise right now, but I'm just trying to upload my videos from the beach yesterday because I had a freaking awesome hike on the beach. My legs hurt like hell, but you know, the Northern California coast is a majestic place. It almost makes you believe in a flying spaghetti monster or something like that. No, well, yeah, I'm letting them talk. I was giving a little pushback. I'm not too into the genetics field. I know they misrepresent a lot of scientific information, but I'd be happy to have a qualified scientist come on and talk about that. That'd be amazing. Let's see if we can remove from the stream. Yes, okay. So there's only one of me now. The other one's just uploading videos. Hopefully won't take too long. So I'm asking anyone to come in and define a rational deity, a creator deity. You know, you don't have to make me believe it. Just tell me what it would look like, what it would do, what are its powers, what qualities does it have, and which ones does it lack? Because I'm trying to find some kind of common ground to say, okay, if I can't disprove this thing, if this were the case, what would it look like and still be reasonable? And still be reasonable. Yeah, that guy, he looked a little... I tend to try not to attack on the basis of appearance, but, you know, when you get those funny memes of like Mark Zuckerberg, look, and he does look a bit extraterrestrial. I mean, I'm just gonna say it, you know. I mean, I probably do sometimes too, but intelligent life is emergent and easily distracted, as am I. It's our one and only weakness, or maybe one of many weaknesses. Is intelligence isn't, you know, it's a good thing in its own right, but it can also it can really what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yeah, it can be a bitch. Yeah, it can. You know, as I've stated a lot, there's thinking and there's overthinking. And if many of us tend to overthink, then we're probably not acting in a way that's very intelligent, even though we're using the logic. We're using the logic all day, every day. But, is that, the most intelligent way to use the logic? I don't know. Does this make sense? I'm not sure. Join the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster today. And, you'll be blessed with such things as beer volcanoes and strippers on tap in heaven. So it's a claim. It's a claim. Like 40 virgins or something. Oh no. Well, that's not good. My video. Okay, let me try doing this differently. My video didn't upload. I've been sitting here this whole time waiting for my beach video to upload. And so yeah, I had, it was not a spiritual experience. It was a very connecting experience, a grounding experience. Risking my life on that hillside by the sea, and just sitting on top of some rocks like a regular fucking monkey. I was supposed to meet up with, I did finally meet up with my cousin out there. But I guess I got the directions wrong, and we were on the same beach, but I went the opposite way. I went southward on the beach, and he went northward. So we were going opposite directions on the same beach. And then after a few hours, I said, well, the tide's coming in, so I'm just going to go sit up on the hill. And just as I was about to leave, he came back up the hill. I ended up with, I'll show you my loot. Marijuana all day, every day. I've got like 3 different strains in here, and they're all coalescing together. This is all local grown. I don't know what the strains are. I just know they're some purple kush, some other stuff. I have a feeling I might just be shit out of luck on these videos right now. Maybe I'll just edit an in-shot video and post that. Because I've got a couple of good ones. One's me driving, and another is me sitting on the edge of the ridge. I climbed out to a little rocky outcropping at the end of the ridge, and sat there for a little bit, and got an almost panoramic 360 of the beach with the tide coming in. So it's pretty beautiful, and yeah. Got that. Yeah, there's no Christians forthcoming, huh? I was hoping some Christians would come by and tell me about it, but no. I'm always looking to rust them Christians. Oh, now he's gonna fucking. I have to go back in a room. Okay, finally did it. It just takes a couple minutes for the device to remove itself after you leave the stream, I guess. I don't know. I think Richard Madsen's pretty adequately described his creator deity. But to break it down to the basics for the sake of having a construct, like a philosophical, right? Like a basic description of what this thing is and what it does. Because we don't even have to have like the human likeness. There's no reason this thing would have to be humanoid. That doesn't even make sense. Like, a thing that creates all life doesn't have to look like me, unless you believe in some passage in the Bible that says God creates man in his image or something like that. But that's not really like, it's not logical. Okay, I started this one on Patreon, and so for the sake of just being completely absurd, we'll go back to watching Cooking with Gail. I was critiquing her quartering of a chicken, over on Patreon, but she's gonna make some lemon chicken. So I got nothing better. I got nothing but time. Nothing but time here. Unless the spiral of death prevents us. The flying spaghetti monster has spoken.
Let's go ahead and now work on mincing the carrot. All right, there we go. And I'll put it in, yeah, let's take a little bit more off here. All right, okay. I'm not going to show you the whole mincing. Most people know how to mince a carrot. Just kind of like go like this.
I do not like the way she's handling that knife. It makes me very uncomfortable.
Mince means to cut it up into
Maybe it's just the
little
camera
pieces,
angle. I don't know.
You know, kind of like this. Obviously, the purpose for doing that is because you want the carrot flavor to be really spread out throughout the sauce. So as you can see, it's going to look kind of like that. You see how small those pieces are? Let me show you. And then I'm going to even make it even smaller. But let's go ahead and do the preliminary step, kind of cut them into small pieces, and then I'm going to make them even smaller. Okay, that's not minced. That's kind of like top. So now let's work on the mincing. I cut it up
Yeah, Jason, I've been waiting for her to lose a finger this whole video.
really small. Now we're going to mince it. Here's how I do it. The reason you want to do this is because this is going to form part of a glazy sauce on the chicken. And, geez, Lizzo must be here trying to mess up my gourmet dish here. And you want to make it really small, so I'm going to go like this. And then I'm going to kind of like cross over this way. So I'm just going to keep doing this, you get the drift, until it's really minced, okay? That is pretty good. See, that's pretty minced. Let's go ahead and put that in a separate container. The next thing I'm going to work on is 3 tablespoons of minced Italian parsley. That's actually, I think I want to use all the parsley. I have a feeling when I mince this, it will come down to about 3 tablespoons. Maybe more, but I got to use all this up, so. Italian parsley has a nice flavor anyways. Let me go ahead and start do a gross chop, and then I'll do a fine.
Okay, word to the wise, using all of an herb just because you want to get rid of it in your recipe is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Okay.
Tune chop, just like I did with the carrots. That actually seems like a lot of parsley. I think I'm going to possibly not use it all. Let's work with what I have.
Thank God.
Right here.
Thank the flying spaghetti
Mince
monster.
that down and see if that gives me about 2 tablespoons. Here's what I'm doing. This would actually be perfect for one of those big, large, like bamboo cutting boards, but I don't have one of them. That's okay. Here, let me show you what I'm doing. I'm kind of going like this. Okay, I'm just going to keep doing it until it's minced. I'm making a large pounding noise. Definitely going to get 3 tablespoons out of this. Okay.
Like
Let me
Brett
just keep
does
doing
when
it
he's
till
in your
it's minced
bedroom
to
at
my
night.
satisfaction, eh? Okay, that's good enough for me. Let's see if we got about 3 tablespoons here. I think I got more than 3 tablespoons. I'm gonna put it in here. 1, oops. I was right, I got more than enough. 2, 3. You know, I do have a lot of chicken. That'd be 4. I'm going to go ahead and go with 4. I have a lot of chicken, so I think it'll work. Besides, parsley's good for you, right? Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and go with 4. So I've got to admit, when I made this recipe before, it was, yeah, but let me smell that. Actually, I think this will work. Yeah, we're gonna leave it the way it is. But it's a good thing I kind of omitted this parsley. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. Yeah, maybe put it on the side for decoration. Let me go ahead and wash this cutting board. Yeah, that'll work. Go ahead and wash this cutting board and now mince the garlic and the onion. The recipe says 1/2 medium onion minced. Is this a medium onion? That's kind of like a small onion. I think I can use the whole thing. But it does say 1 large clove minced. So let's work on that. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go and work on mincing the... take that add part out. Yeah. That's good. And then we'll go ahead and add this in. This was like the end of one of those big batches of garlic that you get in the grocery store, you know. And I stored it in a paper bag in a dark place, which causes it to last a long time, but still, I still need to, I'm trying so many different recipes that, you know, I end up throwing some stuff out because some of my ingredients sit too long in storage.
I'm muted. Yeah, parsley is normally a garnish. Like 3 tablespoons is a fucking heavy. That's heavy. Luckily, parsley's pretty neutral, but like I've seen the overusage of like basil or something like that, where it's like, dude, like what are you fucking doing?
I just think that it's difficult for the European mind to grasp the
Let's go back to the beginning of this. Make sure
ideas that are being expressed.
Necessity for the Singular Earth with Richard and P-Town. I knew I put this on here for a particular reason. Pretty sure I think I ended up talking to P-Town the last time we started talking about this video. So hey, maybe P-Town will come back. I don't know. But I feel like I don't know if we got directly into the subject matter. Necessity for Singular Earth, Father Jesus. The title says a lot to me, and I don't know if we're all going to be on the same page here. So when expressing what we describe as a deity, and describing the attributes and characteristics of this deity.
And respect to you all, welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions, and tonight's second show with P-Town.
So, in my experience with cooking, Jason, I don't know, I'm getting a lag, so I'm going to wait for a second. Your comment, just finished prepping beans and always go overboard with the seasonings. I am a salt lover. I tend to oversalt everything, and so I tend to overseason most things with certain exceptions. So I've tried to learn to dial back the seasoning, but it depends on the dish you're trying to make and the seasoning you're trying to use. It's very much like that whole like flavor pairing thing, and you don't have to get all like highfalutin about it or whatever. But with beans, right, you're dealing with, for the most part, a pretty bland flavor to begin with. So you can kind of safely assume that the more you add, you're not going to hurt it too much. With a few exceptions. It's kind of like potatoes, beans, or those types of food groups where the seasoning really makes the meal. Otherwise, you're just eating the same bland shit over and over again. And in my opinion, that's how I feel about those types of things.
P-Town, if you would take a minute to like shill what you do and state your position and
okay, I think we remember this part. I might skip
why you would even agree to do a conversation with
for about 2.5 months.
So Pete,
now I feel like it's my current ministry. I don't think that it's what God's going to have me do long term, but it's what I'm
Pete
doing now.
professes to be a former atheist who was raised Christian, returned to Christianity after becoming an atheist at some point, and we didn't really get like I don't know if Richard gets the gist of the story here, but we get into like the whole of P-Town's story when we talked, as far as I recall. We just kind of glossed over it a bit, and a lot of people accuse P-Town of being disingenuous, but he is trying to evangelize a pretty traditional form of Trinitarian Christianity, I guess. That's what I got out of the
But that's me.
If I remember correctly,
I'm a daddy,
I might be remembering
husband,
wrong.
And I usually work too much. That's who I am.
Peace and respect 420. Thanks for coming by. How old's your children?
She will be 4 and let's see, 4 months or so. She's 3.5. How many kids did you have?
0. And how long have you guys been married?
We got married in 2015, I believe. I tell my wife it's her job to remember this stuff, but I do that as just an excuse. We literally just talked about this yesterday, and I don't know. It's 15 or 16,
yeah.
So yeah.
I'm afraid I was always the same way too. I was married to the same woman for 17 years, which is about 14 years longer than I wanted to be.
Let me know, because I'm getting a little bit of buffering. In the side chat, always let me know if the video's playing like shit or my mic sounds like shit, please, so I can try to do something to fix it.
And she already had kids, so I helped raise kids, but I never had any children of my own, which, that's okay. I'll worry about that later in heaven. For now...
but you still got to be a dad.
Yeah, not the same thing, I think. I think it's not the same. No. I mean, I know how my mom felt about us, and that's not how I felt about these children. But I met their mother when they were 3 and 6, respectively. And I mean, I supported them into their adulthood until they started doing their own thing and stuff like that. But I think it's not the same. I really do. I fathered a child one time, but I had it professionally murdered. So that's the end of that, and never did that again. So, all right. So, my intent in having these conversations is that if what I'm offering is more showable in the text, more reasonable in logic, more coherent in our perception of actuality, my hope is that the person I'm speaking to about those things might consider it seriously and adopt some part of it or all of it. That's my hope. Okay, I don't expect that to happen, but extremely rarely, and that's proven out to be true. It's extremely rare that someone should do that. There's only been about 40 people that have done that, and I'm kind of surprised at that number being that high, actually.
You think 40 people now believe what you believe?
Yes,
or
I
do you
know
think
that.
they... Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. They've professed as much, and are able to read within the reading frame that I've shown them, and have a larger understanding of the world's religions due to that. And it doesn't matter what religion they investigate, really. It works no matter which religion we're talking about.
So I think simply in technical terms, Richard's theory is a type of polytheism, right? And it's dependent on the way that you analyze the texts of all of the world's large religions, and the historical context of it, and then reading prophecies in those texts as still being prophecies. Few or none of those prophecies have been fulfilled. I'm trying to put it like very simple terms, right?
You may or may not know, P-Town, that I think that all of the ancient religions are valid. Upon their delivery, they were valid. Upon their delivery by the angelic, when it was first delivered. Now, what it became over time, that's another problem. I think that Christianity is not exempt from those same problems of how things became thought of differently over time. And that's why I invite people to have these conversations, and mostly, concerning the Bible, because where I live and who I'm talking to. For instance, it's a lot more likely you'd be a Christian than you'd be a Hinduist.
And I tend to agree with Richard on that point. It seems very biased, but as Americans, we have to have that bias and assume, as the situation we are in, that we are surrounded by people who believe this particular things about this particular books and sets of instructions, and we're trying to have reasonable conversations with them, and they're like not being reasonable, and it's a pretty, I think objective observers of the future will understand.
Hindi. Right? So, not that I think Hinduism is invalid, I just think that it's difficult for the European mind to grasp the ideas that are being expressed in Hinduism.
Now, I'm on the wrong page, so I didn't pause. When Richard says the European mind, I think what he means to say is the Christian predominant mindset, right? Because we just happen to arrive at Christianity, whereas Hindus in other parts of the world happen to arrive at that conclusion, right? But it's not a matter of the fundamental mindset so much as the culture and the society being so different over a long span of time.
Well, I'm trying to grasp your foundation that you're building. I'm sure that there's a more deeper foundation to it. I do have my objections, but I'm holding my tongue for now. Richard,
that's what the show is for, is for you to not hold your tongue. I mean, I want to be reasonable and rational about it and calm about it, but very serious about it.
Well, I wanted to hear you out before I just dive in. I try to do that. But I can express my concerns if you want me to.
Sure. Let me say something I forgot to say. Thanks for your dad work. A lot of men abandon family when a child comes, and thank you for your commitment. I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. But yeah, I think I'm fortunate. She, it was funny. I was like, I wanted a son like me, right? Just like any dad probably. And then I think we were, early on, I was just talking, I'd pray and I would say, I think for her sake, I think she would like a daughter. Anyway, all this is just talking to God. But, and I thought, it'd be really nice to have a daughter just like my wife, because she would be an amazing sister to my other ones. Turns out I got a daughter that's just like me, like spitting image, personality. I get blamed a lot just because of the biology. But it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, Richard, I guess here, I'll just start here. I mean, in the beginning, when you first sent me the link, I looked up your show and I looked up the show that we'll be doing, and I think you labeled it as a couple theists, talking about discussing the rationality of their differing views of the Bible. And I think that, and I don't want to speak for you, but as far as I would define being a theist, I would consider you not one, unless I'm misunderstanding something. And the reason why I'm not one to typically play definitions like that, but the reason why I feel like I have to take an immediate stand a lot of time with you is because of the perception that others have. People.
Okay, and I'm going to pause there for a second because the video is really choppy on my end. I'll get back to normal speed, but I want to, Jason in the side chat, Desert Storm and Revelation started my deconstruction. In the faith, I assumed the curvature of space-time could send images of an Apache helicopter back in time. And then I tried to imagine how someone 2,000 years ago would describe them. Now that's interesting. Like that's like some serious fucking like introspection right there. Like in the moment, in the heat of the moment, to have that type of epiphany, like it's crazy. I had a mushroom trip, which is not nearly as, it's not as serious or consequential, but I often talk about this because I was at a point in my life where the people around me that I loved in life were turning away from me. I was going down a very bad path. I was homeless perpetually and, just doing stupid shit all the time. And I'd had a few moments of like, should I turn to the church? Because there was one instance where we, a church group fed us and then offered for us to come in to, partake in the church services and all that stuff. But they gave us food anyway. They were like, you can have this anyway. It's not required. But if you want, after you're done eating, come on in and join us. And I kind of thought about it. I considered it. My ex, who professed to be a witch, was like, you can go in and eat with those fuckers if you want to, but I'm going to take their food and fucking do my own thing. I was like, okay. And so I got this moral conflict about it. And another one where we were sitting outside a Christian bookstore, me and the same person, and a guy just randomly walked up to my car and handed me a $20 bill and said, have a nice day. I was like, okay. He just walked out of that Christian bookstore, looked me up and down, and handed me $20. Like, try. I didn't even ask for it. I was just sitting there in my car arguing with my spouse at the time and feeling fucking miserable. And this person just did a good thing for no apparent reason. It's like, is that Christianity? Well, that's the Christianity that I thought was supposed to be happening, right? But then I was like, does that mean I should turn to this religion? Is this like a sign from God? Or is this just a person doing a good thing for another person, regardless of their faith? Because they're not preaching at me. They're just handing me a piece of bread and inviting me to the table, It's just a very human thing to do. And for people who weren't as knowledgeable as we are, they didn't have access to information, a lot of them couldn't read. Yeah, I mean, they probably were doing the best they could do at the time with their oral traditions and things like that. I mean, we've got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, maybe religion has contributed somewhat to the progress of society. And we'll give them that little bit and go from there. Okay, and we'll see if this video plays regularly or not. 1.25. Let's see if that helps.
Generalize and associate you with being a Christian because you have such a powerful voice, because you speak in a way that has is authoritative and convincing. But it happens all the time to me in the last 2.5 months, where I'm grouped in with you on some things, and I think it's a dangerous thing from my perspective.
Uh-oh.
You might want to found
Look
online.
out. Wait, P-Town's at risk. P-Town is threatened because he is friends with Richard and he tends to agree with him on some things. I may have just neglected that part of it. I don't think we made it to that part of the conversation the last time before I started talking to P-Town, so I'm like, hold on. Who is threatening you, sir? They don't like that you're having conversations with Richard. You don't say. Alright, well that's an interesting spin.
Well, I mean, can we, do you, well, first, are you're a self-proclaimed theist, but do you believe in an almighty, powerful God? As a creator of the universe?
Not as soon as you put that last qualifier in there, no.
Right, so you don't believe in a creator God in terms of creating the world, the universe that we live in. You believe in something else. How would you define being a theist?
Okay. I think theism is belief in a god. Or gods.
But you could say, like, you could believe that I'm a god then, and you would be considered a theist.
Possibly, but I'd have to discuss, I'd have to be able to justify why I think that you are a god.
But if the justification requires,
praise.
If the justification, by my definition, requires that, God created everything, space, time, and matter, everything, and by that definition, which is typically the universal definition of a theist, unless it's polytheism, you're
right. And so now you're differentiating various types of theism. You're not justifying yourself as a monotheist. You're making a monotheistic claim, and you're not addressing the deeper issue. So this is your issue, P-Town. You need to justify why you are a monotheist rather than a polytheist or a pantheist or any other type of theist or deist, right? Because that's another claim. That you're saying, well, you don't believe in this ultimate, all-powerful, I don't remember the word he used. Is one of those that just says, yeah, the dude can do everything. There's nothing he can't do. That's the type of theism you're talking about. That's a particular type of monotheism.
You're ascribing to something else. And it muddies the water for all the atheists that are on, will watch the show.
No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't muddy the water for atheists at all. That's a false claim. Atheists don't have to worry about the truth proposition of your claim for a monotheistic creator god. We'd rationally be more worried about a pantheistic or polytheistic claim. Those are actually more rational. You have less proof for monotheism than the inference of polytheism or pantheism. You have a more restricted God, right? And the fact that you fundamentally don't understand that is problematic in your philosophy.
Or will in the future, or it makes things intrinsically challenging for, especially since I get grouped in with flat earthers, I get grouped in with all kinds of things, actually. Just
you
because
don't
I
get
believe
grouped in with those people. You group yourself in with those people until you oppose them. Until such time that you go and debunk a flat earther or a YECer as a person of faith, you're lumping yourself in with them by default. Right? That's the way this works. Because whether they talk about it publicly or not, most fundamentalist, Bible-believing Christians have to be at least young earth creationists, if not flat earthers, in order to literally believe the text. That is a prerequisite.
Believe the Bible.
people group you in to this set of ideas that you don't hold to, do you point out that you're not every Christian? And that they're actually making like a conglomerate concrete mass of lots of different ideas and calling it one thing when it's not? Because it's logically fallacious if you allow them to do that. I have to say you should point it out.
Well, what I'm fighting typically is a belief. Well, they're going to look at the Bible as a fairy tale. They're going to look at right, and it's not fine though, but it's not. They're going to look at it like it's a piece of literature that everyone has their own interpretation. That and you know what? There's already enough corruption in the different denominations and interpretations of the Bible, and the different. Some of it is hard to fully grasp. I get it, but to associate it with, quite frankly, the way that you approach trying to understand the Bible is not at all the same. But I am grouped in with that.
But why is that problematic?
Well, I'll just give you one example off the top of my head. Last time we talked, you believe indirectly, like I don't even know how to say it. You believe that Satan created man. I mean, this, and that's your interpretation of the same book.
Yes.
Yeah, that right there just is is a typical attack of the enemy, where it's a half truth, a half lie, where the snake comes in and wiggles its way in, disguised and ambush.
Right, and your attack of the enemy, right? Another false claim that you're making based in the book that you don't have evidence to back. So, Richard doesn't believe the Bible the same way that you do, and you fundamentally misunderstand that, and yet you persist in this argument. I don't understand.
Which is the truth, which is the Word of God. It's a tactic. It's a tactic portrayed through the Bible.
Okay, I can see that overarching theme within the text, definitely. Can you show me that your interpretation, although I'm sure you can show me that it's majorative, I'm sure you could produce many scholars, both theologians.
I'll stop for a moment and say hello to Hillary's emails. I'm probably still getting some feedback. I'm trying to do that thing again because I thought I might have some time, and then I was like, oh no, I have no time. I'm out of time. Time. No, I have plenty of time. Everything's fine. At least try to get one video in here of my beautiful trip to the up along the coast on Highway 1. You always need things like that in your life, just random adventures for no apparent reason. But yeah, this has been and is an open room. Just trying to describe the deity, the creator God, colloquially. We don't have to get into the specific religion. I just want to know what type of creator being or entity or mind makes sense to you and why and how. I've described mine as something that has to be able to interact with the physical world, and in my understanding of the world, that entity necessarily must be in itself physical. I don't see why it has to have a mind. It may or may not have a mind. It may just randomly produce structures with physical conscious beings out of thin air. That could be a possibility. I mean, let's leave room for interpretation of our understanding of what's going on around us. Let's not presume to know so much. That might be a little bit a better idea. I don't know. But if I was to describe the creator God as most monotheistic or even polytheistic religions would describe it, right? There has to be at least one or maybe a multitude of entities or beings that are capable of producing another type of life form from the faculty of their imagination. but they themselves must exist in order to do so. And then there's the question of whether or not they have a power to manipulate those life forms to carry out certain tasks or behave in a certain way, right? That's another question. And what, if any, the limitations of their power are. I think there must be many. So I've gone through great lengths to try and describe this a bit, but we have a being that exists for a long period of time and can produce other beings. And I see I have Hillary's emails.
Hello.
Come on in. Hello.
I think you gave a magnificent description.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You said you've been here for 20 minutes. I don't know if you heard the last couple diatribes I did on that, but yeah, I'm trying to explore, at least in theory, whether I can describe a creator deity that makes sense and how that would work. So, I don't know. Do you have kind of an explanation from your end?
Not an explanation, but a definition, and it's essentially the same as yours, that it was unlimited potential. And then it became actual, which became this universe.
Okay,
And
so
I
the
think
deity doesn't have to have a mind. It could just
No.
be...
Mind doesn't have a mind.
Right. So it could create other minds without ever intending to do so.
Correct.
There's no intention behind it.
Correct.
This is like a pretty classical interpretation of deism, right? Like this
Yes.
is like I think Benjamin Franklin, if I'm correct, was a deist as well. Like he had.
I don't know
written
about
it.
Franklin. I don't know about Franklin, but Thomas Jefferson definitely was.
Oh, Jefferson. Okay, yeah. I thought it was one of those guys. Magir? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hello, welcome. Saying hi to you.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to get... I'm still just getting feedback from this thing. I was just trying to get some photos from the beach up. The one of the clouds on the thumbnail is one of them, but I got several pictures and videos yesterday that were pretty majestic, and just makes you think, yeah, look at the trees, look at all the beauty around us, and why not think that someone thought to create all of this for us? And that seems very it seems like a selfish proposition. It seems like we're going out of our way to extend ourselves a special courtesy. If we go that route, like not you and I per se, but maybe others.
What is that? The background fan?
Oh yeah, I could probably turn it off. It's warmed up a little bit.
Oh, it's fine. It's not
very
bothering
cold
me.
out here. Okay. Yeah, it's a little space heater I have going right now, but
Yeah, I think that it's our brain is interpreting those trees, but if the world was nothing but cubes, then we'd see that as beautiful and perfectly designed and everything too. I think it's just the way that our brain interprets the environment.
So, okay, wait. Do you have expertise, like a scientific specialty? Because I'm not. I should ask that. I don't think I've asked you.
No, I did
Okay.
have some nursing courses in college, but
Okay. But you're just speaking like from like I've studied a bit, as well, like as far as neuroscience and things like that are concerned, and the way we interpret the world, the way that we see it through our eyes, may not be necessarily the way that it looks in reality, objectively, right?
Correct.
What's up, William Freeman? Good to see you. I
Monkey
think that's
and
interesting,
company. Thank
though. That it's interesting to think, though, because we can recognize that other creatures have brains that are designed the way we are. So we'd say, just like we are attracted to things that are red, many other animals that operate kind of in a similar way, as far as their interpretation of patterns, also see red the same way that we do, or in a similar way that we do, right? We see red is a color that evokes emotional response. It evokes the seeking for, and that's like, so objectively, the wavelengths, the light source that we identify the color red, which we find we find that through our reasoning through our brains, right? And that comports with other animals, not just humans, many other animals, right? That all see the color red. And respond to the color red in some similar fashion. So then you have some objective reasoning behind red existing. Red does exist, regardless of human people. So is red a product of the deity?
I'd say it's just a lot of it is a product of our laws of nature, and then chemistry, and then biology. That for whatever reason, plants have, if they make something red, it stay away. Like red berries are usually dangerous, but black or very dark blue are usually nutritious. And that it's that way with lots of animals, that if they have some red on them, it's stay away.
But some of the most delicious foods are red. We just have to be able to properly identify those as well.
Strawberries, roses, things like that, but it takes a higher order mind usually to understand that. You know, like mammalian as opposed to lizard.
Right. So, okay, and I think that pertains to the conversation in that when we're thinking of the deity in a certain way, and we don't think of it as intelligent, it didn't produce that property. That property just arose out of the mere fact of the deity existing.
Well, it arose as a mere fact of the deity creating. If there was no existence, there would be no red.
Well, if there was no existence, there would be no creation, implying the creator wouldn't. It would kind of be the creator would be non-issue if there was no creation. We wouldn't have a thing to care about. So
exactly.
So we are in a symbiotic relationship with that creator, though, with that deity. Yes. It depends on us as much as we depend on it, in the fact of observation.
Yes.
And do you think that the deity observes us, or are we just observing it, and that is our purpose?
The way I define it, it observes us, but it's not necessarily so.
I'm not sure if you... I'm told primate eyes can see 3 colors, rather most mammals 2, to be able to distinguish ripe from unripe fruits. You know anything about that?
I don't know what colors other animals see, but that looks right.
Yeah, I think, well, okay, most primates, I think mammals can see the two main color wavelengths, which is the red-blue spectrum, right? And then we have.
Okay, Jason just explained, and yes, I agree with that. It was when he said
RGB.
red, green, blue.
Oh, green is on the spectrum as well?
Yeah, the
I thought
three
it was just
primary
red.
colors. No, it's three
Right,
primary
okay.
colors. Because usually when we say color, we don't mean white and black. Those are just intensities.
Right,
And RGB is
light
fine.
versus dark is a shading rather than coloring.
Correct.
But I thought maybe I missed something. Traditionally, I thought it was red, yellow, and blue. Why are you saying red, green, and blue?
When it comes to like monitors and stuff, for whatever reason, it's called red, green, blue. I don't know why it is, but yeah.
Yeah, well, with the primary colors, it depends on because you mix two of those colors to make another color or some combination of that sort. So, but that applies, I think, mostly to painting, like visual artwork and stuff like that.
Right. Jason's saying that the emanation is different from reflection.
Okay.
So yellow if it's painted and green if it's emitted light.
Gotcha. Makes sense. But then all we're saying is that most mammals have this ability, but primates have a specialized ability above the other mammals, is what's being claimed here. Trichromate vision? Trichromate vision?
Yeah, it just means three color. Yes,
okay,
that's true. Dogs and cows.
The other animals aren't seeing the green or yellow shades. That's what's going on. Is that right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk you.
That seems to be what he's saying, yes.
Okay. All right, yeah. I mean, so as far as deism, I think I can't be non-deistic here, so I don't know. I can't say that it's not the case. But can you be a deist and like get into public office? Can you use that and say, "No, I'm just a deist and God is the universe, that's my religion," and that'll pass, you think, to get into public office in the US?
Yes, ever since the first decade that the U.S. existed, many of our leaders have been deists. Being theist is fairly recent within the past 100 years.
Do you think people scrutinize that more now than they used to? Or is this just kind of a phase we're going through as a country?
Yeah, I think it's probably a phase because in the 1800s, a lot of people were spiritualists. And nowadays, they want a person to definitely go for Jesus or definitely Muhammad. And this particular denomination, they're not as concerned about, but they definitely want it to be either Christianity or Islam.
All right. If you don't mind or you don't want to redirect, we can go back into this video a little bit, and if you want to respond, just butt in. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Theologian and religious, secular and religious, that would agree with you, but can you show me that I'm wrong and that they or you are right? Can you show me that?
I think it's important to first establish the model that we use to interpret something. Because I think if we're going to compare my way of interpreting it to yours, I think that there's certain things that we can possibly establish and become and agree upon. Like, for example, I'm going to use the Bible to help translate the Bible. What I mean by that is, I don't know, just what came out of my mouth. But what I mean by that is I don't have a great example off the top of my head.
How about
but
this?
when
That it should be consistent within itself.
correct, and if sure, and a lot of times there's some apparent contradictions or there's some gaps that can be filled, but I'm gonna, and it's just the whole thing is a labyrinth of connections that makes, it's the point of the way that of what makes it divine. But I think first and foremost, you use the Bible to interpret the Bible. I'm not saying it's the only means, but it is one of the primary means of evaluating it. Because you can't, if you go and you try to interpret it from something secular, something outside of the Bible, you're just bringing something else in, typically.
Okay, I'm butting in there because now you're just talking about bringing in some other objective source of knowledge that can verify the Bible, and he's saying that's wrong. He's saying somehow that's incorrect. And I would call that a very flawed assumption.
Right. Even calling it objective makes no sense, because when he says, I use the Bible to interpret the Bible, which is a good way of doing it, but it is entirely subjective to the point of solipsism. It's saying, I'm going to use words, but I'm going to use them in such a coded way that the only way you can understand it is by looking at other parts of the same document.
That's
so they have
almost
no
a way of
value.
saying, I would go to any lengths to justify this book, regardless of any information presented to me, which is like the reverse of the view that they say, well, what would it take to convince you of God? And then we'd have to say, well, what would it take to convince you that just this book is wrong about God? Just this one book. Yeah. I don't know. It seems like another level of insanity to me.
Typically. It's
let's look at what you just said and see how well that works. Are you the only Christian that says they're using the Bible to interpret the Bible?
I don't know, but I think that what we should do is you present your model though, Richard, because I don't think
doing right now.
Okay, all right.
I'm already doing that.
Okay.
So I want to show you that there are some hidden assumptions in your speech that people naturally make. I'm not picking on you. People always do this, and it's okay. It's just not good thinking. Okay? And I'm going to show you that. If it's true that you say that you're interpreting the Bible via the Bible, and that's all that you're doing, then it should be true that anyone who says that will agree with your reading. Is it true that everyone who says that agrees with your reading?
Of course not. I'm sure that.
Then why does this? Why does the assertion have value?
Okay, so
I promise you that
I don't have the bet.
And Veckel says that he uses the Bible to interpret the Bible, and so does Jill. Jill says that too. But I don't think you agree with them.
Yeah, I agree with B.S. Lewis here. Interpreting is done by people, not books, right? Hence, different people are going to interpret the book differently. Even in works of that we admit are fiction, people will look at the Harry Potter phenomenon, right? Where people took sides about which house they were going to be, because, or Or Star Wars is another great example. People will align with the Sith as like a cultural thing. They don't necessarily agree with the ideals, but as some kind of cultural phenomenon, they're just aligning on one side of this narrative, this dichotomy that we're creating in an art form, right? In literature, in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not really looking at the big picture, like early on when P-Town was saying, well, because Richard says that he interprets that Satan created man, well, that must mean that man is evil. That's P-Town's like lay biblical interpretation, but that's not actually what Richard means. Like if you would sit down and listen to the explanation for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see B.S. Lewis. And this doesn't really apply to deism in the way that we've described it. We don't even have to worry about these arguments. But at the same time, they're going to ask us, how do we establish our standard for morality? Where do we get that moral compass from? I wonder if sometimes it's safer to just say, okay, I'll follow your commandments. Just the 10 Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though there's some things in there I don't actually agree with. Actually, there's a lot in there I don't actually agree with. Just for the sake of argument, I'll follow your 10 Commandments and move on with life. What do you think about that proposition? Do you think that's something that should be doable? Well, then we have to pretend to worship a deity that we do not, in fact, worship. We just have to do it for the sake of getting along, right? Or at least respect the belief in that deity and invoke its name when we really mean something else. So we have to be deceptive. Does that align? Right.
Yeah, you can't win with this system. I don't know. If they say, where do you get morality? I would just say game theory. Don't screw other people over if you don't want to be screwed over.
But in game theory, there's also that inevitability that somebody's going to screw you over regardless of what you do.
There are self-correcting features within it that if you screw over the other person, you're ultimately going to lose. And then there's, cooperative and non-cooperative gameplay. There's all kinds of different stuff. But basically, if you're nice, then the other person's nice, and it's a great repeating pattern.
So you think maybe that we evolve through that process, that pattern of reciprocation?
Yes.
Through exercising in a positive way using the game theory, then we create the standard by which people live morally.
Yeah, we see that with
monkeys. In a way that is...
Yeah, I kind of quibble over the term moral, but yes. And like with monkeys, they've done experiments where a monkey has a whole bunch of something, but they can't use it, and they can give as much or as little as they want to the other monkey. Well, the first one, gives one of something to the other one. Then the other one reciprocates. The set goes back and forth a few times, and then the first monkey, one of the monkeys decides, instead of one at a time, maybe I could give two. And then the other one follows suit. Okay, here's two. Well, they both just increased their wealth. So it makes sense to keep on going with that type of pattern. And it's the same way with humans. We can be greedy and selfish and not have very good technological progress, or we can share our progress, and then that leads to more productivity and more progress, and that generally tends to work better.
But if I share my idea with you and I haven't been sufficiently compensated for or credited for it yet, right? Then you might steal my idea and take credit. That might hurt me.
Yeah, sometimes that works out.
But is it still a net positive that society gets the advancement regardless of who takes credit? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Society gains the achievement regardless of who takes credit for it.
Correct.
So from Stanford.edu, of course, game theory is the study of the ways in which interacting choices of economic agents produce outcomes with respect to the preferences or utilities of those agents, where the outcomes in questioning might have been intended by none of the agents. The meaning of this statement will not be clear to the non-expert until each of the italicized words and phrases has been explained and featured in some examples, of course. Doing this will be the main business of this article. First, however, we provide some historical and philosophical context in order to motivate the reader for the technical work ahead. So this is a pretty advanced study. Like, it's not something you just... Uh-oh. Hopefully I didn't cut out here.
No, you're fine.
Okay, I still hear you. I just didn't see the screen. Okay. So this is not like, just something you can read an article about and really grasp on you're going to have to do some work to really get the deeper connotations of game theory and embracing this, right?
Right.
But it kind of makes sense in the nature of reality and the topics that we're addressing here, and how we can compromise with people, I think, is the most important part. And I keep kind of emphasizing this, that even if we think somebody has an absurd idea, as long as we can compromise with them and rationalize and reason with them, we can reach a positive outcome for both individuals.
Yeah, I always look at, try to apply a utilitarian perspective. Who does it help? Who does it harm? And if it helps without harming, then we should tolerate it.
And where do you think we draw that line in regards to religious indoctrination, particularly, and how that's handled as a whole?
That is very difficult.
Do you think it is wrong for a theocracy to exist fundamentally, for a nation of people ruled by a religion?
Not as long as people can enter and leave as they wish. But to have a theocracy that people are born into and you're required to go right along with it, then yes, I would say that's a harmful totalitarian state.
Okay.
North Korea being
a
wonderful example.
Do you think we kind of walk that line in the U.S. as being a Christian nation, some would say, or a nation founded on those principles? Do you think we still kind of walk a fine line there?
Not really. I think that we are really majority secular, and even we were founded that way. People could have whatever belief they wanted. I don't think we're anywhere near a theocracy, because we don't even agree which God we want to worship.
Do you think that the differentiation with states' rights creates a divide there, where we have certain states that do not seem to adhere to those principles, but yet, because of the system we've established in our democratic constitutions, that those states are allowed to assemble themselves in such a way that they can create a theocratic state that is still in line with the Constitution of the U.S.?
I don't think that any theocratic state would be in line with the Constitution. The whole point of states' rights is to create a laboratory of democracy, so people try out different things and we see what fails and what succeeds. What's good in one area isn't necessarily the same, doesn't behave the same way in a different geographic area. Yes, there are some states that do tend to follow fairly strict theological guidelines, but they tend to be the S-hole states to carry a Trumpism. Can we force tolerance? No, we can demand it, but I don't think we're really going to get it if we demand it. Best thing is to show that it's beneficial.
Yeah, I agree, and I think when we describe any time we describe the use of force, it should be the absolute last resort. And if we're showing the absolute last resort as a when people say, I pressed the wrong button. People say like tolerating intolerance. I see it as being like it is a direct contradiction in terms. You have to tolerate intolerant ideas in order to address them. Otherwise, you are trying to eradicate the idea without addressing the person, which never fixes the issue. And as long as that's a problem, like we're always trying to force tolerance on people who otherwise, the rational approach is to educate these people, right, as much as we can. I think intolerance is a product of a lack of experience and education, a lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Republican Party, Marjorie, am I pronouncing that right? I think the Republican Party and evangelical complex is working hard to find a theocracy. Remember, they don't need to get there through democratic means. And that's the problem. Theocracy can become totalitarian. It can become fascist pretty quick. As many people accuse Hitler of being, an atheist, which he probably was, he still utilized the theology, the institutions, the Catholic Church in order to further his agenda. So it didn't matter what his personal beliefs were. He still used those Christian fundamentalist tenets to further his agenda, his eugenics, and all of his ideas. So that doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, when we say found a theocracy, but really any philosophical system that's strictly adhered to would be similar to a theocracy. And how do we define what a god is in that case?
Yeah. Could you picture having like a purely stoic state, a philocracy? A philocracy, is that a thing? We are a stoic nation. So we practice in stoicism here. Our constitution. I don't know. That just sounds ridiculous, but that's actually the way this kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the preamble to the Constitution, I think that's some of the most problematic language, because it says that we find the truth to be self-evident that God granted us all these liberties and rights. Okay, that in of itself says that you have to have, there's a pantheistic God implied.
Mm-hmm.
Or, a monotheistic God implied. Right? And that he has, where do we derive that? It is self-evident.
What they mean is when we look at nature and we look at other animals, this is what we observe, that no government comes in and gives animals their rights in the animal world. So therefore we have to take it upon ourselves and not call on some other being.
But they are, though. If they're calling nature God, then that's one thing. But you could say that it is evident in the fact that we are alive, that we should be alive, right? You
Right.
could say something like that. That we have the right to life by virtue of being alive. Okay. I don't know, though. That's a slippery slope right there for the, all those deeper arguments like abortion and stuff. Does a thing have a right to live in my body? or what have you. It's deep stuff. Deep. I look at trying to revise the Constitution as much as possible. The original text of the Constitution, to try and eliminate more and more of these amendments. I feel like we pile on and overcomplicate certain matters where I think that's unnecessary for us in this day and age, and we're merely clinging to old flawed texts because we're scared of the repercussions of maybe changing these texts. And I think a lot of the biblical literalists behave in the same way.
Yeah, it's the fear of unintended consequences. If we make too radical of a change instead of incremental changes, what will be the overall effect? But yeah, I think that whenever they say God, you could easily substitute nature. I think that Thomas Jefferson, who wrote most of the Constitution, if I recall correctly, was basically taking that interpretation.
Yeah, and in a big way, people don't always recognize that way. He is appealing to the majority of people around him, whom he also disagrees with, but he's appealing to their reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see it that way. I think people have called there's a portion of that instance before the Constitution is ratified, we call it the Great Compromise. Is that correct? Do you remember that? I might be thinking of a different instance, but I think that's.
I don't know, and I think that name is pronounced Magere Hein. He can type in whether that is the correct pronunciation.
Oh no, okay. So it was. I'm thinking of something contemporary that's time. Gere, okay. So this is actually what the Great Compromise for Connecticut, or it was orchestrated by the state of Connecticut, provided a dual system of congressional representation. In the House of Representatives, each state would be assigned a number of seats in proportion to its population. So that was the compromise for more democratic institutions, as opposed to those that were, I think, based on land ownership at the time. They would take the size of the territory rather than the actual population into account.
Okay.
If I interpreted that correctly. So yeah, I don't know where to so we seem to agree on the deity a bit. Do you know much about the I keep getting the acronym wrong. The Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Have you heard about this?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Pastafarianism.
Yes, I found out we had a local chapter here, and it was actually advertised to me on Facebook, and I'm like, this seems fun. Like, it just seems like something I could do just, for jollies and, just call myself a pastafarian. Like, what could go wrong? And then I was, like, questioning the deeper implications. Like, should I put a colander on my head when I take my next driver's license picture, which is coming up this year, I don't know. It might be worthwhile. What have I got to lose?
Yeah. I don't know if the DMV even would allow that.
Yeah, they've challenged it in some states just to see if we could use this as religious head garb and get away with it, I guess is the point.
Okay. Yeah, because some religions require people to wear turbans and stuff.
Yeah, and then it gives me a reason to dress up as a pirate on Fridays and go to work and tell them, what, it's my religious observance. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't get away with that one. But, it's a fun thought experiment. But also on the alternative, I could demand every Friday off, and I'm well established in my job, right? I'd be like, nope, now I've ascribed to a new religion. I'm giving you notice. I worship every Friday, and if you don't want me to come into work dressed as a pirate, then you have to give me the day off and accommodate me. This is my religion. Right?
Well,
I technically have that right.
Yeah, I would think so. The Dutch Transportation Authority has disallowed colander on head photos. Yeah, and in Texas, I know that there are certain jobs that they state right on there. You have to be willing to go by the dress code, which includes wearing pants. That's because some people were applying for state jobs, but they said that their religion, women could only wear skirts or dresses. And so then they put that in.
See, that's the difference between what prescriptive and proscriptive commands, right? They say you have to dress a certain way in order to come into this establishment, as opposed to you can't dress this other way, right? And there's kind of a fine line between that, like the dress code in certain places. Like I've worked security at places where the gentleman could not enter the club if they were wearing a t-shirt or sneakers. And I'm like, this is an eating and drinking establishment. Like, why the fuck do you care if he's wearing a t-shirt and sneakers? It's like,
they're trying to class.
How am I supposed to?
Yeah, I've when I was a kid, my parents were a member of a private club, and it was the same type of situation. You had to dress up in order to eat there. And, to me, I prefer relaxation. And so I wouldn't be a member of that type of a club.
Yeah. And so then by the process of us just deciding, hey, we're not going to go to that club. We're going to boycott. We're going to exercise our right to shop somewhere else. Okay, that's cool. So how do we define discrimination then in that sense? I was watching a video earlier from Freedom from Religion Foundation, and where they're describing situations going on in the U.S. where they have after-school Bible clubs who have been allowed to operate for many years in these various public schools, and now they have after-school Satanist clubs, and there's all this pushback coming in from the PTA and all these different people. And even to the extent of people calling in bomb threats and gun threats to these schools that are allowing the after-school Satanist clubs. Is there something we need to do on the federal level to regulate that, or do they just need to deal with these people on the local level?
I don't have a strong opinion on that. That would be interesting if the Department of Education made some sort of administrative ruling saying you have to allow, Satanist, or you can't allow any other religion to have after school. Or you need parental permission. I mean, that would pretty much solve it all. Kids, I can see kids thinking it's cool to be in the Satanist group, and then their parents saying, oh, heck no. But some of the parents would be like, sure, why not? Doesn't harm anything.
Well, on the other end of that, though, there's instances where the parents are actually manipulating the system in a way that they send them to these after-school Bible clubs because they don't have an alternative, like a wraparound service for after-school care, because they're still at work. So they're utilizing these free services, but now they are forcing their child to attend a religious group that they have no protection against, and they're being facilitated by the public school system by virtue of being on campus after school lets out. So the parents are in this sense complicit in the religious indoctrination of young people by virtue of them being lazy or overworked, one or the other, or both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely agree. And who pays for the services? To some extent, the taxpayer, as far as the building itself, but it is volunteers that go in and spend their time to be the adult supervision. So it basically nobody's paying for it. It's volunteer. And
no, there's nobody paying for it necessarily, but the other aspect with these volunteers and the situation we're presenting the kids is the problem. Because now, do we let the kids have a choice? Do I want to go with the Jesus group or the Satan group? Or do my parents have the say-so? Or does the school board have the say-so? Who's, you know what I mean? Who are we allowing to manipulate these children as they come out of the classroom on a public campus? Or do they just have a free will option to go to either or neither?
Yeah, it gets very complicated because I would say that nobody should be able to force someone into religious indoctrination. But I know plenty of people would say that the parents somehow are in control, which I don't care for.
Yeah, I think one way or the other, parents will lose control of their children. And I'm slightly to the right. Cock and bull. I'm advertising, free of charge. I provided another advertisement to somebody earlier from I think they're from Twitch, trying to get Twitch followers. This .com site or something. So you can pay me if you like. That's fine. I'm just gonna run with that. I'm always over here like, yeah, donate or don't donate. I'm really not in this for money. But the other thing in terms of these after-school programs, one of them in particular with the church, affiliated with the Church of Satan, they tried to charge them extra fees for protection services because they received threats from, surprise, surprise, fundamentalist Christian groups, apparently, or possibly. Either way, they received threats. They considered it a threat to the institution, and they said, okay, if you're going to practice here, you need to pay protection money, essentially. Racketeering, right? And they don't do this to the Christian groups because the Christian groups don't get bomb threats. And so, again, we come into this, okay, is somebody receiving preferable treatment here? Should there be a law in place that protects us from things like this? Or is there a law in place that people just aren't enforcing for whatever reason? Do you think there's a simple answer to that? Is that just too nuanced to,
this is
another 3-hour stream?
No, this is a charity that's doing this, and they're taking taxpayer funds from the entire community as far as the building and the utilities go. So they can't offer it to one without the other. Now, what I would say in such a situation is it's the Christian groups that are, I'm going to lose my thread here in a second. Basically, that if they were going to charge protection money to any group, they should charge it to all the groups, because if the Christian group wasn't there, that wouldn't have brought the satanic group in, and then there wouldn't be the bomb threats. So it's got to go toward everybody or nobody. And since it is a charity and this is being paid for by taxes, I don't think they could charge any group.
And on to that's a perfectly valid legal argument as far as I can tell. On the topic of basic morality, who is displaying the evil traits here, right? Is it the Satanist who just wants to have a Satanist group, or is it the Christian who is threatening to bomb children because there's a Satanist group? Right?
Exactly.
Who is behaving immorally?
And they could make that point. They could say, hey, do you want to be part of the peaceful Satanist group? Or do you want to be in the part that wants to, bomb kids and blow up buildings and all this crazy stuff? I'd turn it into a PR campaign.
Oh, I love this stream so much right now. It's it's making me giddy. I'm over 2.5 hours, and I really have to take a shower. I've been trying to run these as long as I can. I mean, 3-hour streams is like a chore for me. I don't know how long you usually hang out, but I don't want to cut us off if you have any important points to make, because I was going one direction. But as the nature of the universe is, we have gone so many different ways with this conversation, and it tickles me. So do you have any other topics of conversation you'd like to address, or anything that we've brought up that kind of makes you think?
No, not really.
And do you have like a first name you prefer to be called by? I don't know if I've asked you.
I usually don't give out my actual name, so if somebody wants
just
to call
call
me
you Hillary.
Yeah, or just Hillary,
That's fine. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure, because I found out, another person goes by, a first name, and that's cool. Like, I don't want to make it awkward. But Hillary's emails, you are a very fascinating individual, very well read, as I understand it. So I always feel like I'm gaining knowledge when we get to talk, and I find it a privilege. And so thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And on that note, I will. I'm going to put up the. What is it? Zang. Give me money. Donate to the stream, or don't. I don't care. I actually don't care. And we're going to end it. Thank you. Be well. Stay trusty. Have a great rest of your week.